All right, so kind of what, I don't know if all the craze is now, but a big topic is what are called knowledge graphs. And the idea of knowledge graphs isn't particularly new. And I think, and in some sense, it's a kind of relabeling of terms. Big push for this from Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the World Wide Web. And I forgot to add a link to a website of his where he envisioned, has anyone heard the term semantic web? So his idea of the semantic web is we have this knowledge spread throughout the whole world, and we can find it and reference it because we have links from one place to another. So it's this linking in a meaningful way. So let's look at so what do people mean by a knowledge graph? So from this book, Knowledge Graphs and Big Data Processing, I've got 3 different definitions. You probably won't like any of them, but a knowledge graph is a mathematical structure with vertices as knowledge units connected by edges that represent the prerequisite relation. So nodes and edges. So we have ideas, a node, we have relationships between them. Those are edges. Graph theoretics, okay, a set of triples, with each triple intuitively representing an assertion. And then this last one, knowledge graphs, could be envisioned as a network of all kinds of things which are relevant to a specific domain or to an organization. They are not limited to abstract concepts and relations, but can also contain instances of things like documents and data sets. So I found a paper about knowledge graphs and diabetes and home management. And so in addition to kind of these abstract concepts, the knowledge graph would actually include links to specific papers about diabetes management. And so this knowledge graph is a way of collecting everything together. And so, well, why are they a graph? So everything there, so the one talked about triplets. And this will look a lot like FIRE, the FIRE standard. And so we have this triplet. We have one concept, a second concept, and then a relationship between them. So that's how this knowledge is. It's all these triplets. And so we would have, in this case, this is from a book, Knowledge Graphs Applied. We have this concept of diabetes. That's a node. And we have a concept, foot ulcers, another node. And then we have this relationship causes. So diabetes causes foot ulcers, and that's the relationship. You have foot ulcers, and then you have a concept of foot, and the relationship between foot ulcers and foot is that's the location. And insulin is a concept. It has then we have arm, and the relation there is they're saying that's an injection area. I don't know that this was I'm not particularly impressed with this knowledge graph, but anyway. Okay, so let's try to do this in practice. And so here's a recent paper. And so they're taking Hans Christian Andersen's story, and they're going to represent it in a knowledge graph. So this, picture this is our, physical scene. And then here is Hans Christian Andersen's description of it. On the table was spread a snow white tablecloth. Upon it was a splendid porcelain service, and the roast goose was steaming famously with its stuffing of apple and dried plums. Okay, so then they construct this knowledge graph that there's an apple inside a goose, which is inside a porcelain server. Now, I think that's kind of strange, so that they're saying that it's inside the porcelain server. The porcelain server is on the tablecloth, and then the tablecloth is on the table. And then they ask the question, is the apple on the table? That's not explicitly said, but from this form of knowledge representation, you can conclude that yes, it is, because you can follow these edges all the way from apple to table. And so there's an implicit connection between the apple is on the table. That struck me as a little funny because I had to conclude that something inside, that there's the same relationship. I could follow the same inside path as an on path, but let's not get hung up about that. Okay, so what did we not represent in that knowledge graph?
The plums.
Okay, we didn't capture plums. And so remember, all knowledge representation is a lie, and that we're including some things, we're excluding other things. I don't see a good reason why you would have apples and not plums in the knowledge model. There are other things I think would be easier to justify the exclusion of. Anything pop to your mind? So the paragraph includes white, so we don't capture the color of anything. And the photograph is, distinct from the paragraph, but there's a lot of other stuff going on that table that we're not bothering to represent in this model. Okay. So this model basically just has two kinds of relationships. It has an inside relationship and it has an on relationship. And this is the dot file that I used to generate that. Now, if we look at the Pete Solovich thing that we were looking at before, present illness program, the PIP, then they've got kind of relationships of, this triggers that, this is a finding of that. Then we have these like logical decision criteria. So is sufficient, a must have, must not have, and then relationship to other hypotheses, caused by, cause of, complicated by, complication of, associated with. So these are the kind of relationships in a diagnosis-oriented knowledge representation that we would then, if we translated these knowledge frames to knowledge graphs, we would have edges with these kind of labels on it. Okay, so let's just brainstorm a little bit here. So I'm going to say I'm going to ask you to create a knowledge graph of the gross anatomy relevant to the liver. So, and I've got this little, Wikipedia schematic here, and then this other one. What kind of relationships would we need to have for describing the anatomical context of the liver? We're quiet tonight. We scared people off. I was looking for people that were on earlier, like Alice and Eleanor. So you would have things like, we're not doing diagnosis, so we would have, like that heart is in. And then what kind of like spatial, so you'd have is in, abdominal cavity. And then you would have basically spatial relation terms. So what kind of spatial relation terms would you be thinking of?
Yeah, above or on top or next to?
Yeah, so you'd have like adjacent to, you could have above, below.
Do left, you could do left or right,
left or right, and I guess you could you could break down the lobes of the lobes of the liver. When I'm thinking about like this, kind of this logic description, how would you relate the liver to the rib cage? How would you describe that?
It's mainly inside, but not all of it.
Yeah, see that. So how do we describe mainly, but not entirely? Is it partially covered? So it does come into again, I guess a choice of level of detail that you're going to describe here. Okay, so what I want to do now is, where were we? I wanted to, let's just do as a group. Let's think through one and just kind of feel out the process. Oh, I see, I lost all my formatting when I put it into Canvas. Okay, so let's pick a disease or something, and let's just so Carl, we're gonna use you as our expert. So let's take something from your world of neonatology or whatever, and let's come up with a simple knowledge representation of something.
Okay, so you want me to name a condition that happens in babies? Is that what you want?
Yeah, we could do we're on the liver. I guess we could do jaundice, but whatever. Just something not too complicated, where we can think through the things here.
Yeah, jaundice is common. It's not really a disease in a lot of respects, can be, but yeah, could do jaundice.
Okay. Okay, and what would be? Let's not worry about our edges yet. Let's just okay, what are the other things that we're going to have besides jaundice here? What's it related to? How would it manifest itself? What would it be caused by?
You asking me or the whole
Yeah.
group?
Oh, well, whoever is going to respond.
So how it manifests? It can manifest through change in skin color.
Okay, so we would have, let's just start with skin color. We can try to be more precise later, I guess. Oh, that way it did it as two. I guess I got to put it as quotes. Okay, what would be another?
Another clinical manifestation that could manifest with lethargy.
Okay.
Quite often it's just routinely checked for. So I don't know if you want to, so there could be a blood test that identifies it.
Okay, and would we have a name for the blood test, or should I just put blood test?
Well, if you put SBR, that's short for serum bilirubin, which is what you're measuring. So SBR, it's an abbreviation. I know we shouldn't use that, but it's just
SBR test. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess so. Then we would have blood bilirubin, right?
Well, yeah, well, that's the same thing. That's just, yeah. Well,
but one's the test for it, and the other is the
compound. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. What else?
I mean, do you want to know what etiology is, or
Yeah.
so this could be physiological.
Okay. Like more specifically?
No, that's what we call it. Just part of your liver learning how to work by itself once you've been born. So most babies just have that as a diagnosis. So it's non-pathological,
Okay.
or it can be hemolytic, meaning your so for the non-medics here.
Did I spell
But
it? You got to forgive me if I
No,
misspell
no,
things.
yeah, that'll be fine. It's missing an A, but that's all right. You're from the States, so I'll tolerate that. So for the non-medical people, jaundice is the yellow coloring of the skin that you see in babies or even adults when their liver's not working or when it's not able to deal with the breakdown usually of heme, which comes from blood, which is why hemolytic's important. Now, it's hemolytic, but you're missing an A in front of the E because you come
Where?
from the youth. So it's hemolytic, but that's all right. It's close enough.
Hemolytic. Okay. All right.
Yep.
So now let's start drawing some of the edges then. So we've got jaundice. I'm just going to put this in quotes so I'm consistent. So when you were describing like physiological versus hemolytic, that almost sounds like the subcategories of the diabetes. Would you have it as a subclass or would you have it as a cause of? How do we want to? Do we want an arrow going from physiological to like caused by? So like my question, do we want something like this with a label equals caused by, or do we want jaundice to physiological label? We could call it a subclass of. What do you think makes the most sense?
I'd probably have it as a subclass.
Okay, so
Yep.
let me get rid of the caused by, and then we'd have the same thing of the jaundice,
Hemolytic.
hemolytic, out of that there, and the label equals subclass of. Okay, so then let's get rid of all that stuff. Okay, so then we would have, oops, I got a wrong quote there. Okay, so then what's going to be our, how are we going to fit blood bilirubin in? What's the relationship between, so we have a test, so we could say, like that's an SBR test, blood bilirubin. I could say label equals identifies, I don't know, measures.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Um,
So that's standalone at the moment. So, yep. So I can. Yep. Okay. So then, do we need a relationship between the jaundice and the SBR test?
yeah, or between the test or the
skin.
bilirubin. Okay, so let me ask you this. So what causes the skin color?
That's the bilirubin.
Okay, so then we say blood bilirubin, although I guess we'd really want to say like elevated blood bilirubin, right? Causes skin color.
Yep. And it also causes the lethargy as a symptom.
Okay, and then blood bilirubin, oops, causes lethargy. Okay. All right, so then Okay, I never got my hemolytic as a subclass. Why did I not?
Because you've spelled.
I typed it different. Yeah.
Yep.
See, computers, garbage in, garbage out. Okay. Okay, we got that as a subclass. And so right now we got these two separated graphs. So how would we connect them?
I guess when the bilirubin is of a certain level, it presents clinically as jaundice. Do you agree, Carl?
Yep.
Yeah, so we need something going from jaundice to blood bilirubin, right? So
I think we need a boundary, like a marker, like above this and below this for the blood, bilirubin level.
oh, okay, so that would be a conclusion that we would draw, right? But we still, so I guess, I'm just so okay, let me just, let me do this, then we can debate it.
So I guess, I mean, the skin color is linked to jaundice because, jaundice is a clinical sign that you've got bilirubin deposited in your skin, and that changes the color of your skin, which is why we then go with jaundice.
Yeah.
So the skin color and the jaundice are linked.
So, yeah, so they're linked through. Okay, so basically we have something going on in the liver, right? And whatever that's going on, and we got these different causes of that, ends up with increased blood bilirubin. So maybe I say elevated blood bilirubin, and then where's my other one? Does this make it better or worse if I add elevated to this? So Carl, where I'm struggling is I kind of want to switch the direction of those arrows.
Yeah, I was just thinking that as you're looking at that, because that's really the end point. So
oops. And where's the other one? Did I not have the other one drawn yet? Nope, right here.
and it's not really a subclass, is it? It's a cause.
Yep. Okay, yeah, because we switched the arrows. And so we say causes. And we probably want to make sure we have like the same tense, we have parallelism in our, causes and measures, not measured. Okay. All right. So I think Latika, you wanted to have a you were saying you wanted a level, right? So you want so from the blood test.
Yeah, depending on the level of the bilirubin, we kind of distinguish if it's jaundice or not, like if that makes
But
sense.
is jaundice or not, or is it a severity? Is it a continuous question, or
What I mean is like serum bilirubin test, and then there's a level. I can't remember exact level, but above this, there's like a cutoff, and then above this, that's gonna be jaundice, and below this, it's normal.
Okay. So that would, yeah, okay, so I could have like a test value that comes, well, okay, so let me ask, what's the action that, is there any action that we would take?
Yeah, you put the baby under phototherapy if it was above a certain value.
Okay, so then we could have a concept of phototherapy. Phototherapy. And so I'm just going to say, and we would just so I don't have to retype everything. I think, you know, we would want that threshold there. So if I say SBR test, and then we have phototherapy, and if I say label equals triggered by, I'm
You're missing
missing
a quotation
right.
at the end of the SBR test.
So isn't it nice? It tells me.
Mm.
Okay. So the only thing that seems to be missing here is what triggers the SBR test.
It's usually the skin color, or
I'd imagine well, okay, I'm naive.
so we'll just
Is
take
it
lethargy
easier to
out.
detect skin color than lethargy and a
Yeah, just
neonate?
just take the lethargy. Well, just take the lethargy out, because I think something we associate with it, but it's usually the skin color.
Okay, so I'm going to say skin color and SBR test, and the label equals
Triggers.
triggered by, if I get a trigger. So I'm a terrible speller, and I've been saved by spell checkers over. When I was in 7th grade, my 7th grade math teacher said I would amount to nothing because I was such a terrible speller. But she didn't anticipate word processors, I guess. Okay. Okay, so if we take lethargy out, let me just take that. And I guess what could be interesting in there is what's the neurological, what's the kind of the neurological mechanism that's being triggered there. That could be, but we just have a simple we're not modeling everything, right?
No, can I just check? So when it says triggered by, should that be triggers? So the skin
Okay.
color triggers the SBR test, and then the SBR test triggers phototherapy.
Okay, triggers. Yep.
Because that'll make more sense to me.
Well, triggered by certainly makes it seem like they're actors in the world.
Mm.
in some sense. Okay. Is there any different paths that might happen between the physiological and the hemolytic?
So the hemolytic will usually be triggered. Well, that'll usually be caused by a blood group mismatch.
Okay. So we could have, our time is rapidly ending, but I am having fun. I hope you are too. Hemo, if I spell it right, I don't have to spell it right, I just have to spell it consistently. So hemolytic, and then we would say what, like the blood type mismatch?
Yeah.
Blood type mismatch causes hemolytic, and we have a label equals causes. And then the physiological, is that just immaturity, or just it's kind of the other, right? It's just
Yeah.
kind of the other. And
Well,
would there
it's, I mean, it's really, I mean, it really is just immaturity delivered and take over the function. So it'd be reasonable to say immaturity as opposed to something like prematurity. It's just immaturity whilst it hasn't had to work in utero. So it's got to
okay, all
take
right,
that on.
so-
So immaturity is fine.
Ah,
So immaturity, not prematurity.
oh, okay, yep, sorry.
Sorry. Slightly different positions. Yep.